Hola, hola chicos. Hello guys. This is another video class for you who are learning all the basics of the Spanish language. Today we are going to have a look at something called stem changing verbs. What is a stem changing verb? Let me explain. I'm going to open my whiteboard. Okay, you should be seeing my whiteboard at the moment. And let me explain what a stem changing verb is. Okay, we saw in our last lesson that when you want to conjugate a verb in Spanish in present, you have three possibilities. If the verb is an ER verb, you have certain endings. If the verb is an ER verb, you have some other endings. And finally, if the verb is an IR verb, you have some other endings. I'm going to write those endings for you because they are going to be useful in this class. So for AR verbs, you have to knock off the AR, and instead of that AR, you add an O for I, an AS for you, only an A for he or she or it, an AMOS for a we, and AIS for a you all, you plural, and finally an AN for a they. Then, if we were using an ER verb, the endings were different, slightly different. We had an O for an I, but then we had an ES, E, EMOS, EIS, and EN. And finally, if we were using an IR verb, we had to use the following endings. O for an yo, ES for a you, E for a he, she, it, but then IMOS for a we, IS for a you, plural, finally EN for a they. Okay, let me give you examples. You use the verb saltar, to jump. You want to conjugate it. You knock off the AR and you start adding this ending. Salto, saltas, salta, saltamos, saltáis, saltan. That's the way we do regular verbs. But what if the verb is a stem changing verb? What is a stem changing verb? It's one of those verbs that stem, that core of the verb that shouldn't change, changes slightly. For example, let me give you an example. The verb pensar, to think. Okay, the verb pensar, if you want to conjugate it, you need to use the normal regular endings. So these ones over here. But you have a little problem because this E here, this one over here, it's going to become an IE sometimes. When? Well, we will see when, and we will see what kind of changes we have. But that is a stem changing verb. It's a verb that has little changes in its stem. Okay, what kind of changes will we have? Okay, we know what changes we will have. We will have sometimes an E that becomes an IE. Some of the times an O will become a UE, or maybe an E will become an I, and only in one case, U will become a UE. Okay, let me explain how we do this. All these changes will follow something that we call the boot rule. So here we have the typical box, or the typical chart with all the boxes. So only in those boxes inside of the boot, we will change the stem. So for example, what kind of verbs do we have an E becoming an IE? For example, the verbs, let me make that bigger. The verb sentir. Okay, that is one of those verbs where the E becomes an IE. Where? Only inside of the boot. So let me conjugate the verb sentir for you. I feel. Siento. See, the E has become an I. You feel. Sientes. He, she feels. Siente. We feel. Sentimos. Sentimos. See, I'm not changing the E into an IE anymore. You all feel. Sentís. And finally, they feel. Sienten. So I have only changed the E into an IE in these boxes over here. Never here and never here. How many verbs do we have in this box? Loads. We will have to discover them, practice with them. There is no way you can guess if a verb is stem changing only by looking at it. It's something that you have to practice. And let me give you another one. For example, the verb, I gave you the verb pensar before, entender, to understand. Well, this E becomes an IE sometimes when inside of the boot. Let me conjugate it for you. I understand. Entiendo. You understand. Entiendes. He, she understand. Entiende. We understand. Entendemos. You plural understand. Entendéis. They understand. Entienden. See, again, I changed the E into an IE only inside of the boot. The same happens with all these categories. All of them follow the boot rule, and you have to apply those changes that I'm showing you. For example, verbs where a no becomes a UE. The verb dormir, the verb to sleep. How would I say I sleep? Duermo. I changed the O into a UE. You sleep. Duermes. He or she sleeps. Duerme. We sleep. No change anymore. Dormimos. You sleep. Dormís. They sleep. Duermen. And again, there are many verbs in that category. In this category where no becomes a UE. Just a matter of discovering them, practicing with them little by little, using the chart, using the list that I gave you. Vale? E becoming an I. For example, the most popular one, or one of the most popular one, pedir, to ask for something, to order. So how do you say I order? or I ask for something. Pido. You order. Pides. He orders. Pide. We order. Pedimos. You order. Pedís. They order. Piden. So it's just a matter of using the boot rule and making these changes inside of the boot. Two more changes that we have, but in this case, they don't follow the boot rule. They will only be applied, these verbs will only change in the first person single. So I, yo. We have something that I call go verbs and something that I call Z verbs. Go verbs. They are verbs in which those verbs, I need an extra G in the first person single, I. Example, the verb poner, to put. If I want to say I put, you say pongo. I put. See, I added an extra G that shouldn't be there, but only for an I. The rest of the verb, normal. Pones, pone, ponemos, and so on. So it's I add an extra G. And Z verbs. In this case, all of them are verbs that, again, in the first person single, I, yo, they need a Z before a C. So, for example, the verb conducir. If you want to say I drive, you need to add an extra Z here and the normal ending. Conduzco, I drive. The rest of the forms of the verb, completely normal. Conduces, conduce, conducimos, and so on. More verbs like this. For example, the verb conocer, to know. If you want to say I know, you have to say conozco. Why? Because it's a Z verb. Only there. For the rest of the forms, conoces, conoce, conocemos, and so on. So these verbs add a Z before a C in the first person single. So this is it. This is what stem changing verbs are. They are verbs that will follow the normal endings. We will use the normal endings for them, but there will be small changes in their stem, in their core, in the part of the verb that shouldn't change. Those changes might be one of these four, following the boot rule, or one of these two, and only the first person single will change. Don't worry, because we will practice with this a lot. I hope this video was useful for you, and I will see you very soon in another video or in another practice video. Bye bye.